Guys, so today what I'm going to show you is how to make a HUD, a heads-up display, a life counter, and how to make it interact with the stuff that's going on with you on the screen. So here's what I've got working so far. This enemy is taking me out. I've also got a power-up that gives me some life back. And then the projectiles, oh, they took me out too quick. I'll show you how to make a game over screen and then how to reset it. Okay. So you'll have more options now to work with, and you can start really filling out your game and giving your players a chance to maybe explore space a little bit easier now that you can give them life back, but you can also take it away. So if you want to make a rage quit kind of game, go for it, I guess. That's something people go for, but it's always fun to make them kind of enjoyable and fun to play. So this is what I'm going to show you how I did this real quick. So I'm going to hit R and we'll go back. Now, most of the code is on the player, but I want to show you a few things you're going to have to make. Some things you're going to have to make a new attribute for the game called player life. The reason we want this to be a game attribute is because we want the player life to be available for anything in the game to see. So maybe we want the entire game to stop once the player life gets to 0. Now, if player life is at 0, everything should stop. I've just got the player stopping at this point, but you could actually make everything stop if you wanted to. So we need to have that first. This is an integer. You could use a real. Probably a better idea to use an integer. And then if we want to go back, we've also made a few new things. Last time we made the enemy projectiles and the shooting enemy. This time I've added in a heart, and I just found a heart online that had a transparent background. It's pretty easy to work with, and I have that set to replicate. Now that behavior is down here, and what that does is it allows you to, it's basically just great for anything in a HUD, anything in a heads-up display where you want to display things multiple times. You can also use it in-game if you wanted to, but I find it most useful when you're doing something like with hearts or with power-ups or anything like that. So we use replicate right here. Depending on the player life amount, which you're going to find out here in just a second, which you may have already made, but I showed it to you just a second ago. And then I have them spaced about 50 pixels apart. And remember, the spacing is always from the middle, so they're going to be right next to each other. If I set them for 60, you'd have just a tiny bit of space between them. So you can see now it's very small. You know, I don't know if you can even see it. Let's see, 70. Maybe you'll see it now. There we go. They're kind of spaced out now. So that one's really easy. That one's really simple. Next thing is the game over screen. This one's a little bit more intense. It still is looking for the game player life attribute, and it's looking for it to be equal to or less than 0. And once it's that, then it displays this text, and we change the attribute of alpha to 0.3. I didn't want it to be a completely non-see-through kind of screen like this. If I set it to 1, this is what's making it show up. So if I set it to 1, then whenever I get taken out, let's see if I can do this pretty quick here. Yeah, this thing will take me out pretty fast. It just blanks out the entire screen, and I would really rather be able to see everything in the background. So if you want it to blank everything out, that's fine. For me, I'd rather it be like this. Okay? So that's pretty much the game end screen. At this point, you can see everything opened up. There's no otherwise. Oh, actually I did, because you do need that. If that's not true, then we do want it to be invisible. So we want it to go to 0. We want the alpha right here to be 0. And alpha controls how transparent it is. All right, we're going to go back over here. And the rest of the code is all on the player. Okay, as I may have said to some of you before, anything you want to have happen to an object or an actor in the game, it has to be coded on that actor. So a few things we did. First thing I made was, is player alive? If game player life is greater than 0, then actually we want to probably change that. Yeah, somehow that got in there. Let's change that back out. We don't really need that. If game player is greater than 0, then we want self alive to be true, and if it's less than 0, if that's not true, we want it to 0 or less, we want it to be false. So we can set that right there. I'll leave that open for you guys so you can see it. Then we have player hit. I have anything that could hit the player and cause it to lose life. It's right here. So what that's going to do is we're going to use change attribute, and we're going to affect player life. That's a game attribute. And then we want to just subtract 1 from game.playerLife. Okay, to subtract 1 heart away from what that player currently has. Okay, so that one's pretty easy. All right, that's just keeping track of how many lives or how many hearts does that character have. Now, once we get down to 0, and we have alive right here, is player alive? If it's less than 0, right here, we had that open. Now it's looking for, if it's not alive, if it's false, and this is to reset the scene. If it's false and we hit R, then we have to reset some things. Okay, we have to reset player life is 4 and alive is true. Okay, now I've got these up at the top too, because if we don't put these up above reset scene, this is what happens. Let me put this above reset scene and I'll show you. Alright, so we get taken out by all the nasty monsters here. Yay, it's fun. Hurry, kill me, kill me. There we go. I gotta get back in range. There we go. And I hit R. Well, it doesn't reset those other variables which reset the screen. I can't move around. Everything's still there on the screen. So there is importance into which order you put these things in. Okay? So I'm going to pull this back down. We want to reset scene after we change all these things. Because if we reset the scene, then we can't actually go back and change anything. Okay? Because these things will have been changed back. Alright? So make sure you do that first. And then as far as gaining a life back, it's pretty much just like the other thing in reverse, where we're taking, if a player is hit by any of these, then we take life away. So guess what? Gain life back is if we connect with that power up, then we're going to say game.playerlife is +1 instead of -1. That one's pretty easy, right? Okay. Nothing in the otherwise. We don't need anything there. I'll go over to the power up real quick so you can see that. It's very simple. If actor overlaps or collides with player, then we destroy this actor. We don't want this thing to do anything other than go away. Okay, so that's pretty much it. If you get everything correct, then you should be able to have a lot more functionality to your game, and you can start creating elements to your game. Okay, and this should all go back to normal. Now, a couple more things just to make sure you understand exactly what you're looking at. Now, to make that HUD work the way you want it to, I made another layer. I'm here in Scene, under Layers. I made another layer called HUD. Okay. Now, I only took one of those hearts, as you can see here in the preview. I only took one of those hearts and added it in. That's the actor that's creating all the other hearts. Okay. And I put it into HUD. Now, HUD is not scrollable. That means it'll stay with the player as it moves. I also put the game over screen in there so it'll stay with us. No matter where we're at on the screen, it will be there with us. So it's actually always there, it's just not visible. Okay. Now, one issue with this is that since the HUD's not scrollable and it's at the top, see right here in the background we have all our other pieces. It's usually advisable to put the HUD in last because the HUD is going to be your top layer. And you can always do this. You can add things to the HUD layer and you can drag it down. You won't see it. You might not see it at that point. Let's see. But it looks like maybe they fixed that. Oh, but it is whenever the game over, press restart comes back, it is in the background. These aren't in the background because there's nothing to conflict with them. But when you're working with these, it might be handy to put the HUD in the background when you're building, and then when you're done, you can put it back up to the top, and it'll be on top of everything. But the main thing on that is make sure it's unchecked. We don't want it to be scrollable. Everything else needs to be scrollable. So if you just check the top mark on here for background, everything underneath it will be scrollable. This does not need to be scrollable. Okay, so this is just for your HUD, your heads-up display, your interface where you get information, and we're going to expand on this a little bit later. But as far as all this functionality, that's everything you need, and you guys can start building anything else you need at this point. Okay, so go ahead and jump in there, and let's see this functionality added to your game.